Hi guys, how are you doing today? Hope you are having a lovely day. Ready for some new stories from askalawyer? Let's go to the first one, about OP's niece's mother, who asked OP to do a DNA test on her daughter because OP's brother refused. Well, now there's another woman claiming that she has a child from OP's brother and wants a DNA test as well. Listen to the story to find out what happened, and of course to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. My brother is very irresponsible and can't take accountability. When his ex-girlfriend got pregnant, he moved across the country. When her baby was born, she asked me if I was willing to take an uncle-aunt DNA test as his sister to see if me and her daughter were related, so he could have proof as he was denying paternity. My parents live a few hours away, so it was most convenient for us to do it. When my brother found out I was willing to test myself against my niece, he called me threatening to cut me off, and that I'm going behind his back and betraying him, and if he says he's not the father, then he's not the father. Our half-brother was willing to take the test, but the DNA people explained to us that full siblings come with stronger conclusions, and half-siblings could make results inconclusive. It was expensive as hell, as we had to go through a private testing company, but the results came back, and my niece is indeed related to me. That was 3 years ago. 2 days ago, I get a random Insta DM from a girl saying she had something urgent to talk to me about. She said that her 3-year-old daughter is my brother's. She explained that it was between him and her fiancé, and the test came back negative. My brother is the only other person she slept with, and she was wondering if one of my parents would take the test. I went through her page, and her daughter uncannily resembles my brother and mother. I was so pissed this was happening again, so I didn't reply and instead called my brother. He denied knowing her, so I called my niece's mom, and she told me he was cheating on her with that girl throughout their entire relationship, along with many other women. When I told her the other woman wanted a DNA test, she flipped out and started bawling. She said that she hates that girl, and that both of their daughters go to the same pre-K, and that her daughter doesn't look like my brother, and I better not take the test. She would be so embarrassed she would move away. I told her she's overreacting, but she said I'm ruining her life. I decided to message the other girl back and said we could talk on the phone. We spoke for a while, and it was uncomfortable, as this is a situation surrounding infidelity on her end as well. So I asked her to pay for the DNA test in full, and she agreed, so I agreed to do it. My niece's mom said I can't see her anymore because I agreed. She says that the other girl is just trying to humiliate her, and that she knows my brother isn't her daughter's father, and I'm an a-hole for going through with it, and I should mind my business. The other child has just as much right to know his or her family as the first child. If anything, OP's brother should be the one bearing all the responsibility, and not OP. In this day and age, knowing one's family tree is almost necessary, with medical conditions and such information being important. At the end of the day, doing what's good for the child goes above the other nonsense. OP's brother is completely irresponsible though. Even if this ruins his current relationship, it's his fault for not having one, but at least 2 babies with other women and cheating. Let's see if the community has the same opinion as me on the matter. Daniele8402 says, "Not the a-hole. Wow. So you came in white-knighted when she needed you, but you can't do the same for another girl your a-hole brother probably knocked up. This woman has a right to know, and a right to court-ordered support. This shouldn't be a question, and your niece's mom is being super immature." Practical Heart 7287 says, "Not the a-hole. Your niece's mother is hypocritical. Your brother and niece's mother are the a-hole." New York Ranger Fan 1026 says, "Wait, hold up. You agreed to help her out and get a DNA test for her child, and only when it was convenient for her. But she doesn't want you to do the same for another woman? Officially the biggest hypocrite on planet Earth. Not the a-hole." When my grandmother was diagnosed with cancer, she opted for no treatment. She had watched her husband go through chemo, radiation, and surgery, and he was miserable the whole time. She didn't want that for herself. Her family supported her. Over the next year, she gifted items to family and friends, told us to write our names on the things we want, take what we wanted, etc. There were conditions. No, you can't have that, it's a family heirloom, meant to go to Aunt and her kids, or to Dad and his kids. We all knew what those items were and who they were going to, so that was easily settled after she died. The house was inherited by my father, who very suddenly and unexpectedly passed away 2 weeks later. I inherited the house at that point. The next-door neighbor, we'll call him Todd, came over several times, upset that he and his kids, 21 female, 19 male, weren't invited to Grandma's funeral. There wasn't one. We were all too busy reeling from my father's death. Weren't presented with a copy of the will. It only included family members. And he knew Grandma loved his kids like her own. She didn't. She complained about them coming over all the time, stealing her water to fill their pool, and she had to tell them to stop calling her Grandma. He wanted to know if I would allow his kids to go through the house to see if there was anything they'd like to take to remember her by. Okay, first, dude, my grandma died 4 weeks ago. And dude, my dad died 2 weeks ago. I thought he was awfully rude, but I offered to let them go through the boxes I had packed that I was planning to donate, and he was offended. I mean, mortified. He said his daughter and son had their hearts set on some items that were family heirlooms, and I literally laughed at him. I explained they were family heirlooms and would be staying with me, and 2 of the items had already gone home with my brother. He said my kids were her family, and she would have gifted those to them. They should have been included along with everyone else when everything was divided up. Keep in mind that none of us knew this guy or his kids, other than the neighbors next door. They were never at any family gatherings that were held at her house, and the only time I ever heard her talk about them was when she was complaining about them, especially when she caught them using both her hoses to fill their pool, and then came over complaining because she had put locks on the outdoor faucets. Luckily, Todd's house was in foreclosure, and he moved away about a year later. That's insane. If she wanted them to have something, it would have happened. I probably would have laughed at him too. Like, this is a joke, right? World Changer 25 says, I would have slowly shut the door on him, making extremely uncomfortable eye contact with a twitch in my left eye. Literally, what the duck? Not Ship Shape says, kids don't get their hearts set on inheriting things. This was a grifter hoping to get something to pawn. Medieval Woman says, where do these people come from? OP really should have told the neighbor how Grandma felt about them. I'm sure he knows though, and just wanted some valuable stuff and figured he could con OP. I, 26 female, just got married to my husband, 30 male. I have a rocky relationship with most of my family on my mother's side. I haven't seen my mother in roughly 7 or 8 years. We haven't spoken, the typical strained mother-daughter relationship. Regardless, I chose to invite some of my family from my mother's side to attend my wedding. It was small and very intimate, so I wanted the important family to be there. While I by no means have great relationships with the people on that side of the family, they did a lot for me when I was younger, and I wanted them to be a part of this special day. My mother was not invited, for a number of reasons. She's known to steal the spotlight and cause problems. Plus, she has openly shot down and berated my husband to family members, despite never meeting him, on the basis that he is an artist, and that's how he makes a living. He makes far more a year than she ever has, too. A little ironic. So inviting her was just not a smart choice. Anyways, after sending invitations, word of course gets out on that side of the family that I'm getting married. I get a call from my cousin, about 3 weeks before the wedding. She wanted to warn me that my mother had decided, for whatever twisted reason in her mind, to get married to her fiancé of now a couple of years on the exact same date. Keep in mind that my wedding was planned 8 months in advance. A week before my wedding, I get a call from one of my aunts on that side, explaining that she will be unable to attend, due to a family matter that has arisen. Code word for my mother's wedding, of course. As soon as I got that first call, I sent out a mass email to everyone, explaining that anyone else who cancels last minute who has already RSVP'd will be charged $70 due to the catering and venue fees that would be wasted on them not being present. I would be able to enforce this, given that all parties had to pay an additional $25 for each room that we booked for them at the hotel. So I had all their information, and they were made aware of this charge. We paid for the rest of their room fees, by the way. Logically, I wasn't actually planning on enforcing this. It was more of an I know what you all are doing, and I'm really mad about it move. So I spent about 2 days after that email dealing with non-stop phone calls from family on that side, saying they had to cancel, and it was absolutely ridiculous that I was forcing them to pick a side. I told them that they had RSVP'd to my wedding months before my mother's, and coming to mine was also just blatant common courtesy. Long story short, that entire side did not show up, aside from my cousin who warned me of the whole thing. I'm still debating actually charging their cards $70, but I think it's too petty. And being honest, writing and even thinking about this on my honeymoon isn't fun. I spent the second night in ducking France crying on my husband's shoulder over this. So am I the a-hole? I know it sounds like sweet revenge, but I think OP will be in the wrong if she does that. It's illegal. OP will be caught, and she will end up losing a lot more. I also don't think OP should have threatened to do it originally. The ones that were going to go to her wedding were going to go anyway. OP's behavior may have driven even more to go. But even if it didn't, what did OP gain? OP's mother is obviously an a-hole. No need to go into that. OP is on her honeymoon. She should forget about her ex-mother and focus on her new husband. And now let's hear the community's opinion. Dragons Love Boxes says, not the a-hole, but cut all contact with everyone but the cousin that warned you. What a bunch of horrible people to be related to. MM172 says, everyone sucks here. Congratulations. You played straight into your mother's hands and made yourself look like the unreasonable one instead of her. I'm sorry it cost you this much to learn that you can't count on your family of origin, but literally charging them for it will not change or fix that. Forget them and focus on the family you're building with your husband instead. Penguin Squeak says, you can't fraudulently charge people's credit cards. You'll get in a lot of trouble. Update. I will not be charging the cards because fraud. Thanks everyone for reminding me that those charges do exist and that my mother's side would most likely press them. A few years ago, I got a nice bonus in a major sales year and made a really smart investment decision with it. I'm a big car guy, and during a dip in the exotic car market, was presented with an insane private market deal on an extremely rare manual transmission supercar. Original owner was a friend in a car club who passed. His kids handled the sale. I had just enough cash available for a down payment to buy it as an investment. Not ready to disclose the model just yet. Fellow gearheads can probably guess. But it is one of less than 200 remaining in North America. Low mileage, all original without a hint of damage. I honestly rarely even drive the thing myself. It's just too valuable at this point. Worth more than triple what I paid for it. Let's just say it's easily valued north of $600,000 right now. Or at least it was. Last weekend, while I was out of town, my idiot 17-year-old stepbrother had his prom and decided to borrow it for the evening. I don't think he was even drinking. The car is just not easy to drive. It doesn't even have any safety features and is tough to handle for anyone less than an experienced driver. He ended up misshifting, spinning it out, and causing a fair amount of damage. It was still drivable afterwards, and he brought it back to my garage, so no accident report was filed. But my cameras caught him leaving with it in pristine condition and returning it wrecked. I'm livid. My dad and stepmom are very apologetic, but aren't really taking much responsibility for what he did. Originally, they wanted me to try and claim it against my insurance, which I have no intention of doing. They eventually came back and offered to try and pay for the repair. I think it can be fixed for under $60,000, but finding parts for the thing isn't a cakewalk. My problem is the loss of value. I had a broker that specializes in these cars go over it with me, and he thinks, even expertly repaired, with the wreck and non-original parts, it will have lost $200,000 to $300,000 in value after being restored. The broker is going to provide me with a written loss of value estimate this week. I'm leaning towards demanding that amount from the family in restitution, or I press charges for the theft of the vehicle. As far as I can tell, those are my two options to seek the full value of the investment. Just getting it repaired would mean taking a $250,000 plus loss when all is said and done. I know this would be a hardship, but my dad and stepfam won't exactly go hungry. They own a couple rental properties they could sell to come up with the cash. But in discussing this with my sister, she thinks I'm being unreasonable to burden the family with such a major expense, and I should just let them pay to fix the car. I don't see how I can even remotely cover the loss I'm taking without pushing this ultimatum their way. Would I be the a-hole? Edit. To clarify, because I keep getting asked. The car was on my own property in my garage and was very well secured. But my dad had a key to the house that my stepbrother used to get in. He knew the alarm code and where the keys were hidden because, well, family. Also, this probably wasn't too clear in the original post, but I'm not exactly wealthy or anything. At least not wealthy enough to afford my own supercar under normal circumstances. This was very much an investment towards retirement for me, hence why I almost never drive it. OP is not in the wrong here. It's not just a car, it's an investment. I think OP should sue for the money and press charges. He stole the car and tried to hide what he did. Some decisions cost major dollars. Amp Rose says, not the a-hole. I'd honestly have pressed charges already. He stole your car and caused massive damage. let alone the safety factor. He could have gotten himself and/or others severely injured, or even Cade, operating a car he had no business being behind the wheel of. Frankly, he's lucky that was the worst that happened, and their apologies don't cover all that. You're being generous giving them different options to work it out that don't include charges. Also, what are they doing about him? Because if they haven't properly grounded him from literally everything, taken away his phone and any gaming devices, and told him he is getting a job to help pay this back, it's not enough. AQ says, "Not the a-hole. Press charges. That little thief is old enough to know better. Your parents know that he's old enough to know better. They will let this slide and you will never get your money back. Press charges. Only way to guarantee something is done about this." Jupiter's Warrior says, "I'm not sure what to advise at this point. Your stepbrother should not have stolen your car, no matter what it is. So he's liable for that. I would be pressing charges for it and suing for damages. I don't know if a court will give you loss of value, but at least they should give you the cost of repairs, at least. But I'm no lawyer. But I'm going with not the a-hole.